Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
This is where we take well, frankly, a big stack of articles, research notes, all that stuff, and we boil it down.
Distill it, really?
Exactly. Distill it into the most important bits of knowledge. Our mission. Basically give you a shortcut to being really clued in.
With maybe a few surprising facts thrown in.
And hopefully enough humor to keep you listening. Today, we are plunging into something really fascinating and incredibly nuanced. It's a research method called a participant observation.
Sounds straightforward, doesn't it?
It really does. Just observe. But as we're about to unpack, it's about so much more than just, watching.
Oh, absolutely.
It's about trying to genuinely understand a social world from the inside.
And what's really kind of revolutionary about it, I think, is that the main goal is achieving something called verstehen.
Verstehen, okay. German term.
Yes,
Yes.
German. And it means much more than just understanding. It's about getting this deep, empathetic grasp of why people do what they do.
Not just the what, but the why.
Precisely. What their actions mean to them, how it all fits into their culture, their norms. It's the big shift from just detached observation.
So it demands more from the researcher.
Definitely. It's almost like you have to try and rent someone else's perspective for a while. It pushes against traditional ideas of purely objective science.
That idea of empathetic understanding, verstehen, that's key then. But practically, how do researchers even start doing that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And one of the benefits, maybe unexpected ones, and of course, the serious challenges that must come with trying to get that deep inside view.
We'll definitely get into those. There's some classic examples, some quite controversial too.
Okay, so we've set the scene, but what does participant observation actually look like, on the ground? How do researchers really embed themselves?
Well, at its core, it involves the researcher doing something pretty full-on, immersing themselves directly into the group or community they're studying.
So like actually joining them.
Yes, exactly. Living among them, taking part in their daily lives, their routines. The goal isn't just to watch from a distance or, ask formal questions in an interview.
Right, not like a survey.
Not at all. It's about experiencing their way of life from the inside, trying to get that authentic, lived perspective, the kind you just can't capture any other way.
And you mentioned it's not superficial. It's deeper than just seeing what people do. What kind of insights are they really trying to dig for?
It's about getting underneath the surface actions, understanding the motivations, the unspoken rules, the rituals, the meanings people attach to what they do.
Can you give an example?
Sure, think about something simple, like a handshake. On the surface, it's just hands touching. But what does it mean in that specific group?
Right, it could mean different things.
Exactly. Respect, greeting, dismissal, a challenge. Participant observation tries to uncover that layer of meaning. But it immediately raises a big question. How deep can you really go? How involved can you become before your own presence or your identity starts changing the very thing you're trying to study?
Ah, right, the observer effect, basically. And that ethical tightrope you mentioned, that seems to lead to different ways of doing this, doesn't it?
It really does. There are two main approaches.
Let's break those down. First up is overt observation.
Okay.
This is where the researcher is completely open about who they are and what they're doing. Their identity, the purpose of the study, it's all disclosed.
No secrets.
No secrets. What's a good example of this?
Well, a classic one is Paul Willis's study, Learning to Labor. This was back in the late 70s.
Right, I know that one. With the working class boys in school.
That's the one. He was very open about being a researcher. He spent years observing and talking with this group of lads, studying their attitudes to school, to work.
And the big advantage there is clear, isn't it?
Absolutely. Informed consent. Everyone knows the deal. It's transparent.
Ethically much cleaner.
Yes, the ethical foundation is much stronger. It's more transparent, more respectful. You're building trust, hopefully, operating with consent, minimizes deception.
It aligns better with research ethics generally.
It does. And that honesty can actually lead to a different kind of depth, maybe one built on people willingly sharing because they trust you.
Okay, so that's overt, clear rules, clear consent. But I'm guessing there's another way, one that's maybe a bit murkier.
That leads us to covert observation. And this is where things get really interesting and often ethically complex.
Covert, so undercover.
Essentially, yes. The researcher's identity and their real purpose are kept hidden from the group.
Wow. Okay, an example.
A really famous and ethically debated one is James Patrick's study of a Glasgow gang in the 60s.
A gang. How did he manage that?
He actually posed as a member of the gang, participated in their activities, sometimes dangerous ones, to study their behavior from the inside, all without revealing he was a researcher.
That sounds incredibly risky and ethically fraught.
Hugely. And that highlights the massive trade-off, doesn't it? Covert observation can potentially give you this raw, unfiltered view of social life.
Because people aren't performing for the researcher.
Exactly. They don't know they're being watched, so they act naturally. Less chance of that Hawthorne effect we mentioned, people changing behavior because they're observed.
But the cost.
The cost is significant. You're using deception. There's absolutely no informed consent. The researcher themselves is often in a really difficult, morally ambiguous spot.
It really brings up that dilemma. Authentic insight versus ethical responsibility.
It absolutely does. Is that unfiltered view worth the ethical tightrope walk? That's the uncomfortable question covert observation forces us to confront.
So whether it's overt or covert, this method clearly offers incredible depth. But let's talk about the clear advantages. Why would researchers choose this demanding path?
Well, a major one is high validity.
Validity meaning
Mouthfulous.
accuracy.
Sort of, yeah. Because the researcher is so deeply immersed, they gain this really rich, in-depth, authentic understanding. You're literally seeing the world through their eyes in its natural context.
Not just asking about it later in an interview.
Precisely. It often yields a level of truth, of lived reality, that other methods really struggle to capture.
Okay, high validity. What else?
Another key strength is its flexibility.
Oh, so?
Well, unlike, say, a survey where all your questions are fixed beforehand, participant observation lets you adapt as you go.
So you can follow unexpected leads.
Exactly. You can pursue things you didn't anticipate, discover new angles, change your focus in real time. It's invaluable for understanding complex social stuff that you couldn't predict.
That makes sense. And I suppose it's good for studying groups that are hard to reach otherwise.
That's another huge point. It's incredibly powerful for observing the unobservable.
Right.
Groups that are suspicious of outsiders, maybe involved in sensitive stuff, even illegal activities, or just very private communities.
Right, like trying to survey a secret online forum or something. Wouldn't work.
Exactly. Formal methods often just hit a brick wall. Participant observation, if you can manage it, can get you past those gatekeepers and into the real dynamics.
Okay, so high validity, flexibility, accessing hidden groups. Powerful stuff. But there have to be downsides, significant ones, I imagine.
Oh, absolutely. It comes with some major caveats.
For instance, you mentioned how unique each study is. Does that make it hard to replicate or rely on the findings in the same way you'd rely on a lab experiment?
That's exactly it. A key limitation is the lack of reliability.
Because it's so specific.
Yes, it's deeply tied to the specific group, the specific time, and the individual researcher, their personality, how they interacted, their unique experiences. It's basically impossible to repeat it and get the exact same results.
So not like a controlled experiment.
Not at all. Every participant observation is essentially a one-off.
And that probably links to another issue. If it's so specific, can you even apply the findings more broadly?
That's the problem of lack of generalizability. What you learn from deeply studying one small specific group is incredibly rich for that group.
But maybe not for others.
Right. You can't easily take those findings and say this applies to everyone or even to all similar groups. What's true for one Glasgow gang might not be true for others, even in the same city, let alone globally.
So depth comes at the cost of breadth.
Well put. And then, circling back, there are the ethical problems. We touched on this, especially with covert observation.
Deception, lack of consent.
Exactly. These aren't just theoretical points. They're really profound challenges for the researcher and the field. Are you justified in studying people without their knowledge or permission? Big questions.
And even with overt observation, there's still that issue you mentioned earlier, the Hawthorne effect.
Right. That's a limitation specifically for the overt approach, when people know they're being studied.
Well, we gotta change how they act.
Consciously or unconsciously, yes. They might try to look better or just act differently than they normally would simply because someone is watching, taking notes. It can affect the authenticity.
Makes sense. So you're trying to be open, but the openness itself can change things.
It's a paradox. And there's one more big one, perhaps more personal for the researcher.
Which is?
The risk of going native.
Going native meaning becoming too much like the group.
Precisely. The researcher gets so involved, so immersed, maybe starts empathizing so deeply, or even adopting the group's views and values.
That they lose their objectivity.
Exactly. They lose that critical distance. Their findings might become biased, reflecting their identification with the group rather than a detached analysis.
I can see how that could happen, spending years living with people.
It's a very real risk.
Yeah.
How do you maintain that crucial analytical edge while also building the deep empathy, the verstehen that the method requires? It's a constant balancing act.
That's a lot to juggle. Given all these complexities, is there a simpler observation method?
Well, for some questions, there's non-participant observation.
Okay, so observing without participating.
Right. The researcher observes from a distance, doesn't get involved in the group's activities. Think of someone watching kids in a playground from a bench, or observing interactions in a courtroom from the gallery.
Ah, okay. More detached.
Yes. The big advantage is maintaining objectivity. You're less likely to influence the group or go native.
But the disadvantage must be...
You lose the depth. You sacrifice that deep, empathetic verstehen. You see what happens, maybe, but you don't get the same insight into why or what it means to the people involved. You lose that inside perspective.
So it's a trade-off again, objectivity versus depth.
Always seems to be in social research.
Okay, let's try and wrap this up. We've covered a lot of ground here on participant observation.
We really have.
From its core idea, getting inside a social world, that verstehen concept through the two main types, overt and the trickier covert approach.
Each with its own ethical minefield.
Definitely. And we've weighed up the pros, that rich, authentic insight, the flexibility, accessing hidden groups against the cons.
The lack of reliability, generalizability, those ethical issues, the Hawthorne effect, and the risk of going native.
It's a powerful but clearly challenging way to do research.
It really is. And I think ultimately it reminds us that knowledge isn't just about collecting facts, is it? It's about deep understanding and thinking about how we apply it.
True.
Participant observation, for all its difficulties, offers a kind of depth that's maybe unparalleled. It shows us that sometimes you really do have to try and walk in someone else's shoes to understand their world.
Even if that path is complicated.
Especially then, perhaps.
Absolutely. And that brings us to a final thought for you, our listeners. Think about how much observing you do in your daily life.
Consciously or unconsciously.
Right. At work, in your community, maybe even with family or friends. Now ask yourself, what difference does it make when you really try to understand a situation from the inside, empathetically, versus just watching from the outside?
What insights might you be gaining?
Or what might you be missing completely, depending on how engaged you are? Something to ponder. Keep asking questions. Keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.